Hello, this is John again with another episode of Recultured. And I have been trying to decide how I'm going to work out this channel, so it's been a little slow going. But I felt it was good to get on here and try to comment on the upcoming election here in 2024. And this is just a short little video on the different aspects of this election and what's really going on with it. And as Christians, this is part of the culture too, how we handle elections and how we look at elections and try to decide them. There's way too much division in our society right now over this election, and people just calling other people out, just most horrible kinds of things, and that's not how Christians should be. What I like to do is look at things a little bit more objectively in these plans, and also realize that one side is being very ugly towards the other, and that dismays me more than anything else. It's sad when a society has rejected Christian values and how they've resorted to name calling just to get their message across, and the worst sort of name calling. And I'll get into that in just a minute here. And then other things too in our society that I think are terrible for us culturally. Too many divisions, especially since the 2016 election. 2020 election was even worse. And I'm praying and hoping that this election is even better and we'll end up with some peace over this. But let's get started. President Trump's plan to defeat inflation. This is his plan to help our nation. And to me, the economy is still the number one issue. Yes, there's a lot of immorality. But I can tell you that economically, to make sure that people have access to the best things that they can have access to help even those who are poor, we've got to bring down the cost to the working class people and to the poor. This inflation is a double tax on the middle class, and it also destroys those who are poor. It is killing our economy, and it's all based in government spending. I mean that's exactly why it is. We're spending trillions of dollars, and a lot of it's going overseas to Ukraine and these other countries. We've run up the national debt. And all that spending is what's causing the inflation, that they're just printing out money with nothing really to back it up. Unlimited amounts of money. And the only way that we're going to be able to bring prices down is to, I think, do these things that Trump is suggesting here. One is unleash American energy. That's oil and fracking. I'm just going right back to it. Rein in wasteful federal spending. Amen to that. And I hope that government commission that he's forming, that he's promised that he would form, would and with Elon Musk involved, would help with that. Regulation cuts. I mean, my goodness, you try to start a small business today, and all the regulations that are there are ridiculous. It's killing small businesses. Tax cuts. It's about time we had tax cuts. My taxes have not gone down. Plus, I've got another tax called inflation. You felt it and I've felt it, and that's very important. Rebalance the trade. I mean, tariffs are necessary. And people say that, tariffs are going to make everything more expensive. Well, tariffs go to the government. They don't go to the costs, number one. The other thing, too, is when we rebalance trade, it brings manufacturing back to the country when we do those tariffs. And the countries that have left, I mean, the corporations that have left us to go to these other countries have been, just sending their stuff over with no kind of trade balance and with no kinds of tariffs. So, I guess what I'm saying is that the companies, in order to avoid paying those required benefits to have employees here in the United States, have gone over to places like China and Mexico where they can pay people a lot less, not have to have those kinds of benefits and things like that. Essentially slave labor. We've allowed corporations to get away with slave labor for so long. And then they just move all the manufacturing, so all the jobs are going overseas, and they're doing it now with cheap labor. and sending those things over to the United States without any kind of tariffs. And so, we're buying Chinese and Mexican products. And there's nothing wrong with buying products that were made in Mexico by Mexicans, by Mexican companies. There's nothing wrong with that. But our corporations going over there and taking advantage of their laws and taking advantage of our non-tariff policy is ridiculous. It's awful and it's evil, and that needs to stop. So tariffs would also bring manufacturing back to the United States. Number one for me is stopping illegal immigration. Friends, these people, and this is speaking from a Christian perspective here. These people that are coming over the border are being led over the border by all of these activist groups trying to get people into our country so that the government can have this permanent underclass of people that they believe will vote for them in every upcoming election. And the other part of that, too, is it's legalized labor trafficking. You hold that border open, you bring in a new workforce that will work for a lot less, with a lot less pay. You don't have to worry about as much benefits and those kinds of things. That they're willing to do these what we call lower class jobs, and it's taking jobs away from poor people who actually need them, who could benefit from these jobs. And the middle class too. It's destroying the middle class jobs. We've got to stop the flow of immigration. And not only that, having these open borders is what's pouring drugs over the border, the fentanyl and all these other things. And so that has to be stopped. We've got to close off our border. We've got to send some of these people back, especially these criminals that they're sending over, and do the right thing. I have all the compassion in the world for someone who's coming into our country who is trying to escape the poor conditions in their country, and trying to come into a new country and make a better life for themselves. But that is not what's happening here. The border has become porous in order to have this legalized labor trafficking and legalized supporters of the Democratic Party. And then end the destabilizing wars. I mean, I'm going to tell you something, and you need to wake up to this, folks. The United States has been propping up Iran for years. And especially under the Obama administration with that nuclear peace deal that they did, it's insane. Why are we sending money to a regime that hates us and hates the West and hates Israel and has denounced anything about it for years, and has denounced the West for years, calling us the Great Satan? Why? Because we want to keep them from getting a nuclear weapon by saying, okay, they'll play nice if we give them money and they'll build a nuclear reactor and blah, blah, blah. That is the most naive thing that I've ever heard of. It's naive to think that the Middle East is going to become a democracy like the United States, or that they're going to play nice. A lot of these folks are radicalized people who hate our country. And we're sending money to them, and they're supporting the terrorist state that has aligned itself against Israel. We are also giving billions of dollars a year to Israel, so we're funding both sides of this conflict. Now, I think Israel has a perfect right to go after the Palestinians and Gaza because of these terrorist attacks. They have a right to defend themselves. Let them defend themselves and get the U.S. out of the way. We need to stop sending all this money overseas that is ruining these countries. And that's not even to mention the Russian Ukrainian conflict. Russia could have won that war a long time ago, and they've really defeated the Ukrainians, but we keep pouring money into them. And we tend to look at Ukraine as the good guys and Russia as the bad guys. And I'm not talking about Ukrainian people. But their government has been corrupt for years. Russia has a corrupt government. It's essentially an oligarchy. And And here we are, what's essentially this cultural war that's going on between them. Not just a cultural war, but it's a hot war, I guess. Really, but it's a clash of two cultures, and all we're doing is pouring money in it to kind of keep it going. And I think it has more to do with giving contracts to all these industries, the military industrial complex, to keep this war going and keep them in the business. And it's sickening, and it's wrong, and it is despicable, and it is evil. It is satanic to prop up these wars and to keep them going. We need somebody to negotiate these wars and bring an end to them. And we've got to do it from a tough position. So that's where I think Trump is. And this plan to defeat inflation is really the whole plan in a nutshell. Well, now if you look at people's talk about Harris's plan, what her plan is, number one, it says federal ban on price gouging on groceries. Well, that sounds all well and good, but we know already that, number one, inflation lies at the doorstep of the Biden-Harris administration. They're the ones constantly spending out this money, with Congress helping them out. They're constantly putting this out, and they're constantly sending out this aid to all these other countries, and this is what's causing the inflation. A federal ban on price gouging on groceries is not going to do anything. Those policies were tried and they failed, and they're really a socialist, communist policy. It's crazy, and it just means more regulations. Lowering prescription drug costs for all Americans. Now again, that sounds like a good thing. I would like to have my prescriptions lowered, but she could have done all this now. They could have done all this a while back. Trump had the policy, from what I remember, where, whatever these companies are selling these drugs in a foreign country, they have to be sold for the same price here in America. And that's not so much a price control, that's a price balance, that's a trade balance. But she's talking about forcing drug companies to charge less and less for these things, thinking that's going to help the American people. And I can tell you that is not one of our main problems. Our main problem is inflation right now, and all these government regulations, and stopping America from producing oil, the necessary oil, the energy to help our economy, and trying to buy it from foreign entities. And that's what's killing everything in our country right now as far as the economy goes. Build 3 million new affordable homes. For whom? The illegal immigrants that are coming in? I mean, come on. Affordable homes means she's trying. Everything here is about trying to control prices from these corporations rather than the government doing things to lower taxes. Now, she says here, tax cuts for more than 100 million middle class and working class Americans. When have the Democrats ever done a tax cut? I mean, when they were forced to by a Republican-led Congress, yeah. But they're not interested in lowering anybody's taxes. The biggest tax burden right now is on the middle class. And the biggest tax burden is inflation. And it's because the government is keeping on spending money over and over again. And it's ridiculous. So, you might think that plan sounds good if you're a Harris supporter, and that's fine if you do. I just think that, that these things are not going to help our economy, and the economy is a major issue. And that especially that 3 million new affordable homes, I'm sorry, but the first people that's going to go to are the illegal immigrants coming over into our country. Now, the other big problem I have with Harris' campaign, and not that the Trump campaign hasn't had any kind of negative rhetoric coming from it, but the Democrats always seem to want to go to the lowest, the very rock bottom that they can. They get mad at Trump calling people stupid or calling people ignorant. or whatever else he might say, calling you know you know immigrants that come across the border illegal immigrants, or calling it an immigrant invasion. Well, they always go straight for. This is Kamala Harris's own word.
He said he wanted generals like Adolf Hitler had.
President Biden believes that Donald Trump is a fascist.
I mean, yes.
This sounds like Nazi rhetoric. This sounds like fascist rhetoric. It sounds like white supremacist rhetoric.
Do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do.
And Biden has to get in there very hard and go rapist, racist, fascist.
Half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
People who supported Donald Trump, someone she calls a wannabe dictator and a petty tyrant.
Yeah, the vice president's rhetoric is the rhetoric that a president of the United States gives.
The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
Now, we got all those names. My main concern was the reference to the bad guys from World War II that they keep trying to pin on Trump. We've already got a record from Donald Trump. He was president from 2016 to 2020, and none of those kinds of policies did he ever implement. I mean, he barely got his own agenda passed because of all the interference that he got, especially from the Justice Department. But all these things, we've already had a Trump presidency where we saw the economy that he was able to generate just from the first 3 years of his office. And then of course the pandemic really took out that last year of office that he had, and killed the momentum that was going on. But anyway, that whole situation, I mean, we've already had a Trump president. We've already seen what he's going to do. And for them to hit below the belt, all it does is stir up people against their own people against Trump, and getting rid of the worst person in the history of the world was everybody. The whole world came together and got rid of that guy in World War II, and now here we are talking about all of that again, bringing all of that up and applying it to a man that we've already know has had a record of helping this country. So it's terrible what the depths that some of these politicians are willing to go through is sickening, and the media is compliant in this too. And also the other thing about Kamala Harris is she talks about freedom, she talks about free speech. But here she is talking about being part of the ban of Trump's ban on Twitter back in 2020. She was part and parcel to it.
Lost his privileges and it should be taken down. And the bottom line is that you can't say that you have one rule for Facebook and you have a different rule for Twitter. The same rule has to apply, which is that there has to be a responsibility that is placed on these social media sites to understand their power. They are directly speaking to millions and millions of people without any level of oversight or regulation. And that has to stop.
Donald Trump has 65 million followers on Twitter. And we have to take seriously the weaponization of this platform by the president, and the need, therefore, of a private corporation to be held accountable to say he has abused the terms, and it could result literally in a threat to safety of human beings who are participating with the process of justice.
There is not a part of you civically, constitutionally, that is concerned about the precedent of a private company taking the platform away from the President of the United States or some other elected official.
Free speech does not condone or protect threats to the safety of other human beings.
Okay. Well, first of all, I would sort of agree with that, but there wasn't any threats that Donald Trump made to the safety of anybody, and that's just more rhetoric. But we see here that she isn't concerned about free speech when it comes to the Constitution, and I'm sure that she is also not concerned with freedom of religion, which is very much should be a concern for Christian believers. I mean, if you can't redress the government, then you are under totalitarianism, and that they don't see that, they don't hear themselves. And I know that they're talking about private corporations, but we know that as soon as an FBI agent retires, from the CIA or the FBI, they go straight into these corporations in order to have an asset in there, and they especially in these media companies, and they begin trying to affect change in them, and it's no more true than with social, truer than in social media. And then finally here, this is how the election map looks like it's shaping up, and I did kind of take Michigan and Wisconsin out of the iffy category. I think Trump is going to be at 312 to 226. I think that's where it's going to end up. Trump said even this evening, and I'm recording this Sunday evening, that some of his polling says he might have New Jersey. I think that's a long shot, but still, I think this is how it's going to end up, and it's going to be a pretty big, significant margin. And I think Trump is even going to win the popular vote. But more importantly than that we need to be praying for both these candidates. And my most concern is, of course, things being up like it was in 2020. And we need to pray for the peace of Christ to reign in our nation come Tuesday night and in the following weeks. Because we got a long road, whoever wins, back to January 20th for the inauguration. So we need to be in prayer for our country. We need to be in prayer for these candidates. And I'm always reminded when it comes to elections to take Reverend John Wesley's advice. I'm a Methodist. I'm an evangelical Methodist. I'll clarify that. And what he says here from his journal. In his journal from Thursday, October 6, 1774, Wesley wrote, I met with those of our society who had votes in the ensuing election and advised them. 1. To vote without fee or reward for the person they judge the most worthy. 2. To speak no evil of the person they voted against. And 3. To take care their spirits were not sharpened against those that voted on the other side. Now, Wesley is advising Christians, that those who are in his Methodist societies, that they should vote without taking a bribe, and vote for the one they judge by their conscience to be the most worthy. And that's very important. To speak no evil of the person they voted against. We have to be so careful in our own language as believers to be examples to others. As much as I disagree with Kamala Harris, I'm not going to sink down to their level and begin calling people the kinds of evil names that the supposedly tolerant left has been doing. And neither am I going to do the more kid names that Trump throws at people, the kid insults I call them. Trump is a lot smarter, and Trump is knows what to say and when to say it, but he likes to hit below the belt for whatever reason, and I don't like that either, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to vote for Trump. And thirdly, to take care of their spirits were not sharpened against those that voted on the other side. The people who are Democrats are not my enemy. Kamala Harris is not my enemy. The devil is my enemy. And, we need to be praying for those, especially those who need Jesus Christ in their lives, to bring people. We're supposed to love our enemies, Jesus said, and pray for those who persecute you. And that there is no our fight in Ephesians chapter 6. Paul says our fight is not against flesh and blood; it's against those powers and principalities, the forces of darkness, and all those things that he says there. And that we shouldn't be looking at people and making them our enemy. We need to do all we can to keep unity and peace, and to pray for those who are broken over whoever loses. We need to be praying for the other side, because a lot of people are going to be broken if Harris loses. A lot of people are going to be broken if Trump loses. And we've got to be careful to pray for one another and lift each other up and look beyond all this. Ultimately, to me, the most important thing is not the United States of America. It's the kingdom of God. And the kingdom of God is far greater than anything this world has to offer. You know, a lot of people talk about God and country as being these things that are level with each other. It's not even close. The kingdom of God is up here, and the United States of America is down here. Now, I think it's important for us to have freedom, and freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom to practice our faith how we want to. And that's why personally I'm voting for Donald Trump, and I think he's got the best plan for this country. But that doesn't mean I'm going to end up hating people who voted on the other side. And I'm not going to be hating people if Trump loses. I'm not going to hate the other side. I'm going to look to Jesus Christ, and I'm going to reach out to people, because that's what needs to happen after an election, especially in the United States of America. Well, thank you for listening this long, and I hope you guys have a good evening. And vote for Donald Trump. That's what I say. But you also vote for Harris. Vote boldly. Vote boldly. Whoever you think is best, vote boldly. Thank you, and have a good night.